right, everybody, it's time to talk about the most anticipated horror movie of the year that we've all been waiting for, Cobweb. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris. Thanks for stopping by and watching my review for Cobweb. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Chris, I have waited for you to review this movie because I just keep hearing the zeitgeist is building. It's like a Barbenheimer thing, you know? Everybody's just talking about Cobweb, and where's all the reviews for it? Where are they at? Where are my peeps at telling me about the vibes and the horror and the Halloween dripped atmosphere? Well, it's here right now. I know select few people have reviewed this already in our community, but I'm here to spread the gospel even further to the few people that watch me. So I watched Cody's video, and maybe we're gonna hit on some similar beats because we do like, you know, similar things, but I like this type of movie. If you've been around for a while, you know my favorite type of like more modern horror is a slow burn type of horror where we've got atmosphere, we've got intenseness, we've got some uneasiness to our characters and maybe our villain. It just slowly builds and builds and builds and builds until we hit a climax, and that's what this film does in spades. But before we get into the actual film, go down and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this with everyone because more people need to know about Cobweb. It's not necessarily underrated because no one's seen it. It's just a movie that has been underwatched and under-publicized and undershown. I'd never even seen a trailer for this movie. I knew it was coming out because typically in the months I kind of go through all the upcoming releases so I can figure out what I'm going to cover across that month, and that's how I found this. The closest theater was like an hour away. Honestly, I wish this had been here. I could care less about Barbie and Oppenheimer. I wanted to see this movie. This was a movie that I was like, you know what? I want this. I don't care about these two juggernauts. They can go die in a hole, but I want to see this weird, inventive Halloween-themed movie. And I did finally. It's finally on VOD. So right after we're done with this, you can go rent it and watch it, which is what I recommend you do. If you've seen it, let me know down below what did you think about it. And go watch it and then come back and let me know what you thought about it afterward because I think you're going to like it. Like I said, may go off the rails a little bit at the end for you, but overall, it's a great movie. So I'm going to talk about a little bit what it's about. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis because I think the least amount you know about this film, the better it is in enjoyment overall. So there's a little boy named Peter. He is basically being bullied at school. One night he's knocking on the wall. He goes up, he knocks back, and then something talks to him through the wall. And that's kind of your little bit of premise. It's a very like fairy tale themed kind of thing. It's got that vibe. The parents are very weird. We've got Anthony Starr playing the dad and Lizzie Kaplan playing the mom. She does a great job here. It's so good, man. They're so weird and eccentric, and there's a kind of a quality to her that as you're watching it, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with her? There's this uneasiness to her throughout the whole film. The dad is your stereotypical, like, I mean, in this type of thing, where you're like, maybe he's also abusing this kid. Maybe that's what's going on here because there's, you know, bullying going on at school, and maybe that's what it is. I get that vibe as a dad who might, you know, spank you with a belt or lock you in a closet, something like that. That's the kind of vibe he gives off, and that maybe the mom is also kind of getting some of that, and maybe that's where uneasiness goes because you kind of feel the tension every time they interact, and even when they're just eating dinner, it's tense even when they're eating bowls of sludge in this film. You're just like, what the fuck, man? This is intense as shit, and that's the vibe that I like. I like an intense movie. It's slowly building throughout this film till it comes to a head at the very end, which I have my most problems with the ending and kind of the third act where it devolves into kind of stereotypical stuff. But for the most part, throughout the film, the tropes are subverted very well. And I think that's what you're going to notice when you watch the movie is that you're like, okay, I see where we're going. I've seen Barbarian. I've seen somebody, you know, lead me down a path and make a hard left turn. Barbarian, this is not, but in a similar style where it is kind of subverting what you think you know. And it does it very well because I was like kind of pulling things into my mind. I was like making the checklist. I was like, okay, dad, abusive, you know, what happens there? I'm making all these things, and then they ultimately were subverted for the most part. Like I said, the third act kind of devolved into, you know, modern horror stuff, but overall, the build up to there is fantastic. I highly recommend you watch this movie. Go watch it now. you can click off, hit the little button with the subscribe and the little thumbs thing, and go watch the movie and come back and let me know what you think. We're going to talk about spoilers for a minute here. Just a minute here, because I feel like we can't really talk about my problems with the movie until we talk about the very end. But overall, all the acting is incredible. Everything in this movie I love. I love the atmosphere. They literally have a pumpkin patch in their backyard. I don't know what more you want. Also, the score is amazing. The music is amazing. Acting is amazing. Atmosphere is amazing. The music is amazing. Everything is good. So, what don't I like about it? What keeps it from the pinnacle of horror? Let's talk about that for just a minute. All right, so spoilers from here on out for the film. So like I said, click off now, go watch the movie, come back, and then you can leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. We end up finding out that when he is, talking back and forth through this wall, it is a sister. And apparently, similar to a barbarian where this creature has been born, obviously there was a lot of inbreeding going on in barbarian, but in this, there is just this kid that was unwanted. They don't really go into explaining a lot of that, but I like the nature that there's this fucked up kid that they had, and they're like, we're just going to lock this bitch in a pit. And she slowly buried her way to get to Peter to do her bidding. That explains a lot of the parents' uneasiness here, because they're just trying to actually protect their kid, and you think they're like these abusers and like monsters themselves, when in reality they're not. It is this creature that they are trying to keep at bay, from basically getting to not only them, but their child. And so it is very weird, but she manipulates Peter into killing the parents, and basically is unleashed upon the bullier. In this movie, he brings like a cousin of his, and they're basically just gonna like break in and do more damage, because that's what bullies do. It's like the 80s version of bullies. They're just gonna break in the house and do some shit, and in reality, they end up getting fucked up by this bitch with long hair and spiders in her hair. So that's my only nitpick, if I will say, is that I think I like not showing throughout the beginning of the film, whereas as we get to the latter parts, they full on show the creature, which I think it was okay in Barbarian, but that was also a fault I have of Barbarian. I'm like, I don't need to see all of these creatures. Not showing them I think works better in the end, but it was fine. Like I said, it's a nitpick for me, honestly, because I love 90% of this movie. So if you're adverse to that, just know that they will show, well, obviously you've seen the movie, they show the creature, and that is kind of a bit of a letdown. It is clearly a lot of CGI going on there. And it's very spider-like. I do get that. That's my only major nitpick. And also I think that the teacher is kind of a mixed bag for me. Her being a substitute, I think, is my biggest problem, having worked in a school. A substitute probably wouldn't do that. They usually just don't care at all. If it had been his actual teacher that had been with him for like a year or so, that really cared and could notice the difference between Peter, how he acted before, and that something was wrong, maybe I could have gotten on board with that. That was the only trope that was very typical horror in this, that you have a character that inserts themselves into this and ends up doing crazy shit at the end, for no reason to move the plot forward. But that's all I've got. Thanks for stopping by and watching my review. Like I said, I highly recommend Cobweb. It's one of the biggest surprises for me of the year. We need to talk about Cobweb. Lionsgate just keeps talking about Saw 10 for some reason. But this is way better. This is definitely going to be up there for me, I think, this year, because I can't foresee anything coming out. We got The Exorcist Believer. That's going to be up there for sure, right? It's going to be up there, David Gordon Green could do no wrong, right? Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks for stopping by. I'm doing some videos for you at the end, as always, so you can continue your journey on the channel. If you like what I do here, consider becoming part of the collective here and spreading the gospel of horror and these weirder, obscure movies that nobody has seen. Whew, I am tired of talking already.